Cases still climbing weeks into a lockdown.
COVID-19 is spreading aggressively in Toronto.
The medical officer of health calling it a very serious concern as we hit the 2-week mark of a citywide lockdown, but adds there are some encouraging signs. Plus, Canada secures its first supply of the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine, with doses expected to arrive before the new year. Details on the rollout and
the use of upselling in some of the funeral homes, I think, is terrible.
The Auditor General calling for change after her annual report finds many funeral homes in the province are conducting high-pressure tactics to maximize profit. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. Ontario reported a record high 1,925 new cases of COVID-19 today. That is one more than yesterday. And in Toronto and Peel, where a lockdown was reimposed 2 weeks ago, the numbers are still surging. But as Chris Glover reports, public health officials say they are seeing some positive signs.
2 weeks into Toronto and Peel's second lockdown, and new COVID infections continue to peak at or near record levels.
I go back to the modeling a couple of weeks ago when we saw the worst case scenario being 6,000. So I sat back and thought, if we didn't do this lockdown, would have it been 6,000?
The Premier's optimism doesn't come in isolation.
I do not want to contemplate what the case counts might have been had we not entered lockdown.
Toronto's top doctor highlighted fewer wide-scale outbreaks in neighborhoods, schools, and long-term care homes.
So I do think we have seen some signs of success, and that we should take some solace in that and use that to help us commit yet again.
Toronto started lockdown with 336 new cases that day and hasn't gone below that figure since, today recording more than 600. Peel had 535 cases November 23rd, and after some fluctuation today, it's around that same number.
How we're watching the incidence rate like it was a sports game.
Epidemiologist Ray Wattianandan reflects on the impact of the spring's lockdown.
It flattened eventually, but it took longer than we thought. It took 2, 3, 4 weeks even before we started seeing flattening happening.
Right now, he has a keen eye on COVID's reproduction rate. Ontario's current number is 0.98. That means each infection is leading to just fewer than one new infection. By itself, Toronto's COVID reproduction rate is lower than it was, but it's still 1.1. What would you say to someone who thought that sounded insignificant?
Anytime you're below 1, that's huge. 1.1 is exponential growth. 1.1 can overwhelm you in a matter of weeks, if not months. So if you're slightly below 1, that means we're on the path to diminishing and extinction.
Despite some encouraging developments, COVID patients in hospital, those in ICU, and those hooked up to ventilators all hit record highs today.
Every day for the past 7 days, we've had an average of 21 new patients with COVID-19 admitted to an ICU in Ontario. So that trajectory is concerning.
One of the most concerning things for Toronto's public health officer is, regardless of what's allowed to be open around the holidays, Eileen Davila is concerned what people are going to do in their own private space. And so again today, she was reminding people to spend the holidays with only the people who live in their household. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
A COVID-19 vaccine could be approved for use in Canada by the end of this week, with deliveries arriving in the country next week.
Shipments will continue to arrive into 2021, with millions of doses on the way. This will move us forward on our whole timeline of vaccine rollout and is a positive development in getting Canadians protected as soon as possible.
The Prime Minister says once it's approved, 249,000 doses of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine will be available before the end of the month. Each vaccination requires 2 doses. That means nearly 125,000 people can get it. Inoculations are expected to start within a day or two of the vaccine arriving at its final distribution point. Canada has a deal for 76 million doses of the Pfizer vaccine and 40 million doses of a vaccine from Moderna when that is approved. And the province says the first shipments of a small number of doses of the Pfizer vaccine could arrive in Ontario as early as next week. But the initial distribution could be hampered by the need to keep the vaccine at an extremely low temperature.
We know that with the Pfizer vaccine, it is perhaps going to be very difficult to move it from the points where we receive it. And so we may not be able to get into long-term care homes immediately. And if we can't, we'll get the workers in those homes to come to the vaccination site where the vaccine is delivered. We'll get them, the personal care workers, the essential visitors, and the healthcare workers who looked after those, the people, the residents of those long-term care centers. We will get them vaccinated.
Hillier says Ontario is expecting about 85,000 doses from Canada's original shipment of 250,000 doses. But the bulk of the vaccinations won't begin until 2021. And when they do, they'll happen in 3 phases. The first phase will deal with the 2 to 4 million vaccine doses expected in the first quarter of 2021. Approximately 1.2 million high-priority Ontarians will get vaccinated in that time. Phase 2 is expected to begin in April and last 6 to 9 months. That's when the bulk of the vaccine doses are expected to arrive. And finally, phase 3 will see a much wider distribution of the vaccine when you will be able to go to the pharmacy or medical clinic to get a shot. Anyone who owns or is thinking of buying a condo will want to pay attention to the latest annual report from the province's Auditor General. Bonnie Lysyk says consumer protections for condo buyers and owners in Ontario are weak. Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley has those details.
There are nearly 1 million condos in Ontario, and the province's Auditor General believes the agencies that are supposed to regulate the condo sector lack teeth.
Our audit report on condominium oversight in Ontario.
Auditor Bonnie Lysyk's report finds little protection for condo buyers and owners. She says provincial regulators don't do enough to pursue alleged misconduct by condo boards or to address complaints about condo management. She also says developers often lowball condo fees pre-construction, only for the condo boards to jack those fees up significantly within a year or two.
It's definitely an area where buyers need to be more educated on, where they're putting their money going forward.
The auditor's advice to the government on the condo sector? Give the regulators stronger powers.
We'll certainly take a look at that, and we'll take a look at all the recommendations in more detail with the Auditor General's report.
At more than 1,400 pages, Lysyk's report gives the government plenty to look at. For instance, the agency that regulates the funeral industry is failing to protect bereaved families from high-pressure sales tactics.
It's not necessarily a government spending issue, but it's a consumer protection issue. And the use of upselling in some of the funeral homes, I think, is terrible.
Also, GO Transit riders missed out on more than $2 million of fare refunds for delayed trains because they have to apply for them. And an audit of virtual medical care in Ontario found a doctor who billed for more than 300 patients in one day. The auditor also found the Ford government spent more than $9 million of public funds last year on ads she considered partisan. That's roughly 1/4 of the government's entire annual advertising budget. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
And as we just mentioned, some troubling findings in the AGA report when it comes to the province's funeral industry, from high-pressure tactics to lack of transparency when it comes to pricing. The Auditor General is calling for more oversight so that grieving families are not taken advantage of during the already stressful task of planning a funeral during a pandemic. Dahlia Ashry has more.
When Arlene Warnich wanted to bury her father's urn along with her mother's and brother's this past spring, she says she was quoted $8,000 in Mississauga.
I just think it really left a sour taste with me, and I'll never forget those Mississauga companies who probably day in, day out, they would have got $8,000, $9,000, $7,000 for 3, small urns.
She ultimately decided to have them in her family's hometown in Manitoba for $600.
You might not know whether that funeral home will cost you $650 for a cremation or $2,000. So in your time of emotional stress and angst, you might feel pressure to spend more money than you need to.
Ontario's Auditor General sent mystery shoppers into 100 funeral homes in the summer. Half of them reported feeling pressure to sign a contract or were given misleading information. Similar practices were uncovered by CBC's Marketplace team back in 2018.
Do we need everything on there?
A couple items are 98% is mandatory.
According to the new AG report, one shopper was charged almost $600 for embalming, even though that is not required in Ontario. And when asked about the cost of a basic cremation at 70 operators, the quotes varied significantly, going from as low as $512 in Windsor to a high of $8,000 in Toronto. Lissick says better protection is needed from the Bereavement Authority of Ontario. The president of the Ontario Funeral Service Association agrees things need to change.
And as an owner of a family-run funeral home, and as president of the Independent Funeral Homes in Ontario, I find that disgusting.
The report also found only 26 out of a sample of 100 licensed operators posted their price list online. The Auditor General is calling on the province to work with the Bereavement Authority to find ways to be more transparent, as well as to conduct unannounced inspections.
The Minister of Government and Consumer Services will direct that the Bereavement Authority of Ontario provide an implementation plan that outlines the specific steps they plan to take to address each recommendation in a timely manner.
They should look after people that are grieving the proper way and not take advantage of people that are grieving.
Dahlia Ashery, CBC News, Toronto.
Police have arrested and charged a 34-year-old Toronto man after he allegedly left 2 nooses at a construction site back in June. 2 black construction workers found the nooses at the construction site at Michael Garron Hospital. Investigators say the site was secured by an entry code and monitored by 24-hour surveillance video. Jason LaHaye faces a charge of property mischief over $5,000, as well as 3 counts of criminal harassment. Police say his arrest is part of a broader hate-motivated mischief and criminal harassment investigation that includes similar incidents at other construction sites across the city. After the break, a heartwarming story of survival, how a community rallied and gave this bald eagle a second chance at life. Plus,
another cool morning on tap for Tuesday. I'm meteorologist Colette Kennedy. We'll talk about the wind chill, but also the warm-up that's coming. That's after the break.
3 members of the Toronto Raptors organization have tested positive for COVID-19. The team's general manager says the organization is taking every precaution as they move forward.
The nature of our positive test, we feel comfortable there's not further, but it's not to say that a week from now or 2 weeks from now or in the middle of the season when we're on the road in Brooklyn that we're not going to have this again. Basketball is our livelihood. It's the livelihood of these players, coaches, and a number of staff. And so we think following the protocols, we can get through this.
The team is not disclosing who received the positive test, but said they are now self-isolating. Training camp opened last week at their temporary home of Tampa, Florida. The Raptors are scheduled to play their first preseason game Saturday in Charlotte. Regular season begins on December 23rd with a game against the New Orleans Pelicans. Now to a heartwarming story of survival. People are coming together to raise money in support of a bald eagle that is recovering after being found nearly dead in Havelock near Peterborough. As Colette Kennedy shows us, despite the odds, the eagle is on its way to a full recovery.
Eagles have this magic about them, but when you're right there, you realize that like magic is really real. I was at a site. I got a text message from a contractor we work with saying that he'd found this eagle on the side of the road. It was on its back, and so it just looked like a big clump laying there, kind of in the ditch. And so I got out of my truck and I thought for sure it was dead. It was like basically lifeless. Its eyes were closed, and I just looked really, really close at its chest. And you could just see the feathers, these little like gentle breaths. You could just see its chest kind of lift up. Yeah, so we made it to Sandy Pines, and the intake person was kind of like, I don't think this eagle is gonna make it.
When an animal comes in that's that flat, we have to assume the worst. So we assumed, because he'd been found on the road, that he'd probably been clipped by a car and he might have a head injury. She put an intravenous into his leg, and we started running the medication in. I got bitten a couple of days ago when I was putting a pill in his mouth. I was very quick with my reflexes and got my finger out pretty quick, but how many people can say they were bitten by an eagle, eh?
All day Saturday, I was just like so sure that the eagle was not going to make it. And towards the end of the day, my sister sent me a message and she says, "Dave, have you looked at Sandy Pines' Facebook page?" And I was like, "No, what's going on?" And she's like, "Get off the phone and check it out."
Mr. Eagle has finally finished all his medications, so we're just going to put him outside and give him some exercise so that he can fly and regain his strength. That's exactly what we hoped for. He looked around, he quickly figured out where he was going to go, and he went to the highest point in the cage. So that was brilliant. I think he's going to be just fine. It takes a special person to be brave enough to go and pick it up in the first place, and then bring it all this way. No, that's pretty amazing. Without people like that out there, bringing the animals into us, we couldn't do what we do.
All these perfect things just aligned to, to get this eagle to Sandy Pines. It just warms my heart and makes me want to do better. Yeah, it's amazing.
And Colette joins us now with a look at the forecast. And Colette, I love that. That is the good news story we all needed today, and it must have been incredible to witness.
Oh, yes, Kelda. It was such an incredible experience to see that eagle take flight. Basically flew right at me, and I swear its wingspan was over 2 meters, I think. It was probably over, 7 to 8 feet, over 2 meters for sure. So nice to see people coming together, helping wildlife, and the folks at Sandy Pines Wildlife Center. They do some amazing, amazing work there. Let's show you what's happening in terms of your weather pattern. See how amazing you might think this is. Okay, we've got mostly clear skies through the overnight. It's the wind chill. So this morning, it felt like about -12 to -13. And again, tomorrow morning, we're going to have a pretty significant wind chill, and the temperature temperature is going to be similar to last night. You'll see that in just a moment. But we get into a temperature change midweek. So a warm front comes through later tomorrow. It's going to really have an impact as we go into midweek Wednesday and then hanging on into at least a portion of the weekend. And then things are going to change over. This is very far out, but there is going to be another system coming through. It looks like a Texas low that's going to develop and move in our direction. At this time, it looks like likely the snowfall will be more well to the north and into northeastern Ontario, and it will be more of a rain event or rain showers that'll push through the GTA. But boy, oh boy, we'll be keeping an eye on that, and I will keep you up to date on that. That's a ways away. For now, the highs from today, can you believe we got just a little bit above freezing? And then Oshawa at -3 and Barrie at -5. So really keeping it cool through the day today. This is what's going to be happening. There's still that northerly flow, so that's giving this cloud cover, and it's, you know, just this one area of southwestern Ontario. You get some flurries too, so that chance tonight, Sarnia and Chatham, Kent, over towards London will have that risk even into a portion of the day tomorrow and a little extra cloud cover. Otherwise, the GTA has sun for much of the day, right around the Golden Horseshoe, and then late day as that warm front approaches, then the cloud cover will come in late afternoon into the evening. Could see some light wet flurries through the overnight, mixing with a few showers into the morning on Wednesday, and a lot of cloud cover is going to be kind of socked in. In fact, we'll still have quite a bit of cloud cover into the day on Thursday as well, but with those milder temperatures because the winds are shifting to the southwest. Overnight, let's point out that wind chill. Winds are -8, the temperature at -4, and then for tomorrow, becoming kind of a mix of sun and cloud. There's that risk of flurries that I mentioned, Sarnia. We have that in for you. Golden Horseshoe tonight. Wind chills -10 to -14. With the sun, we will start to warm up in the morning hours, but have a look at your afternoon temperatures before that cloud deck starts to roll in here. And then what do I mean by warmer? Well, it is a little bit above seasonal. Wednesday with 5 and Thursday 6, and then I've even got 7 in for Saturday, and that'll be kind of the changeover, and things will cool down on the backside of that system, Kelda, that comes in Sunday.
Well, I like the sound of warmer, at least for the next little while. Thanks so much, Colette.
The weather is brought to you by Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. We test, so it runs. It's hard to stop a train.
It seems participants in Toronto's backyard chicken pilot project have something to crow about. The trial run that was set to end this March may be extended another year. Our Lauren Pelly has the scoop from the local chicken coop.
As a Toronto resident, Lauren Bloomis wasn't quite sure what to expect about owning chickens or how her coop would go over with the neighbors.
But it's been really received very well by everybody in the neighborhood. It's sort of been a source of conversation.
Bloomis has 2 hens with some familiar names.
Alexis and Moira. Oh, that's great.
So these 2 girls have been living here in the Etobicoke backyard since May of this year. And this is actually about as noisy as they get.
Like many backyard chicken owners, Bloomis says the hens became part of her home.
We're attached to them. They feed us. We haven't purchased eggs since we got them.
With the pandemic tying up city resources, staff want to extend the backyard chicken pilot project 1 more year. And so far, the city says it hasn't ruffled many feathers.
Things have gone quite smoothly. We haven't had a lot of complaints.
I think this pilot project has proven that you can have backyard chickens. They can live in harmony across the city.
I hope they expand this project citywide.
But Bloomis knows extending the pilot also delays another possibility, ending it entirely.
We'd miss them, and I think our neighborhood would too.
If the recommendation is approved by City Council, the pilot project will be extended until March 2022. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
Finally tonight, an Alberta teen has become the first Canadian to win a prestigious International Science Award. Miriam Segai, a grade 12 student from Fort McMurray, won the Breakthrough Junior Challenge, a competition that asks students from around the world to create videos explaining complex scientific principles to the public. The 17-year-old created a 3-minute video to explain quantum tunneling.
If you could walk through walls in real life. And it turns out you can, at a quantum level. We're talking on the scale of the stuff that make up atoms. Strange things happen at a quantum level. For one thing, all subatomic particles, they've got split personalities. One personality is a wave and the other one's a particle, but they're still one being. When you want to know where they are, they seem like a particle. And when you want to know what they're doing, they behave like waves. But you can't ask both personalities at the same time. Basically, they've got some serious commitment issues, and that means we can only guess where they might be.
In the end, she beat out 5,600 other students to win the top prize. It comes with a scholarship of $250,000 US, $100,000 toward a science lab for her high school, and $50,000 cash for the teacher who inspired her. Congratulations. And that is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night, everyone.